Today on Smacky's Garage, we're going to be working on the '69 Mustang again, and we're going to be changing up the stereo system one more time. Now, here on Smacky's Garage, we actually built the stereo system for the '69 Mustang, one that was completely self-contained, that sits on the back seats, on top of the fold-down seats, where there's two 6x9s and an amplifier that I can connect to. But after having it for a year in the car, I find myself, it's kind of a pain to take in and take out, so I'm not going to keep it in the back anymore. So that's coming out. Now what I want to do is I want to explore some different options for classic Mustangs and what you can do for stereos. So I'm going to try a few different things this year when it comes to what are the options that you have for sound. I still have an original radio in this car, so I really don't want to do any damage to that, but we're going to see what we can do to work around that to make a good listening experience in the car, other than the exhaust. Now, we're going to start pretty much the simplest we can get. So I didn't buy an original speaker, but I bought a single speaker that goes in the top of the dash. Some of the '69 Mustangs had a single speaker that was in the top of the dash, right above the center. So we're going to be trying to install aftermarket one of those into the car to see how it sounds. We're going to answer the question, is it satisfying enough? Does it sound good enough? If you have a single speaker in the center of the dash on this '69 Mustang. Now we're not actually going to use the original stereo that goes with it to power it. We're going to use an amplifier that I bought offline. These are two different options for amplifiers that I found that I think are going to be good. So this one, they both do the same thing. I mean, this one has more capability. You can plug in a USB stick if you're going to be using it. The SD card, I won't be doing that as much. This is much simpler, where you just plug it in and it works. There's no external inputs other than Bluetooth. There is an auxiliary in out back, but I'm not going to be using that. So with this, it's really good if you're going to be having access to it in the car. This one is if it's going to be hidden behind something. I think it would be better. Now for this one, if you want to go to Bluetooth, you're going to have to select turn it on first, and then you're going to have to hit the Bluetooth button to get it to change to Bluetooth. This one will automatically connect via your phone, so you don't need to push a button to get there. Now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna wire this up first on the workbench to make sure everything works before we install it in the car. Kind of want to hear how it sounds too before I put it in the car and then after, because I have a feeling the tones and everything it's gonna change being inside an enclosed space. So here's the system that we have today. So there's power, there is, looks like control if you're running the USB or the SD card. You have your volume control, treble, bass, and a small screen. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to quickly wire this up first to this Retrosound speaker. Now I chose this Retrosound speaker because I've heard good things about it and I've heard people say that it sounds good. It's a part number R-57N, and I mean overall it feels good, the casing is nice. We're going to have to see how it sounds, but let's go ahead and wire it up. Okay, now with all that connected, I'm just gonna add some power. Let's go ahead and power it up. So it actually has a radio attached, built into it. So you can plug in an antenna on the back and you can use that to kind of listen to the radio, but I don't listen to the radio anymore. I mainly use just Bluetooth. So we're gonna see if we can connect it directly to Bluetooth on my phone. All right, so now we're gonna try some copyright-free music from YouTube. All right, so I'm really surprised at how good this little speaker sounds paired with this small amplifier. From a single speaker, I'm kind of happy with the way that it sounds. The amount of bass is good enough. The treble sounds pretty good. So from Retrosound, I mean, it's a good product. We're gonna go ahead now, we're gonna install it in the car. We're gonna see how it sounds in there. Unfortunately, it's still freezing out here below zero, so we're not gonna be taking the car or starting it up, but at least we can see kind of the next evolution of the stereo. Let's go ahead, let's install the stereo in the car. And to do that, we need to take out the dash pad. Now to get the dash out to get the speaker in, I just essentially have to take out the dash pad that goes across the entire car. Bunch of screws, but not that hard. All right, so now let's look at the underside of this where we're going to put the speaker. So this is an original dash pad, so you can see it's in decent condition. I mean, a little bit of rust on it, but it's not too bad. For this, I ended up replacing a few of the rivets because they were popping out. So we got 3 new rivets. This is what's going to hold the speaker in place, and we shouldn't have to modify it to make it work. The speaker came with some hardware to install it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put them here and see if we can mount in location. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to line this up. So this has a plastic ring, maybe a hard foam ring around the outside that's going to space it off of the speaker grate. So you can see if I put this here, it's going to sit off a little bit. So the first thing I'm noticing is this material is actually in the way. So I'm going to have to cut this off to get it to fit. So it seems to be okay to locate on all 4 of those pads. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some clips in and we're going to see if we can get the screws in to hold it in place. So as I'm installing this, I'm watching to make sure none of these screws are piercing through. And you can kind of see from the side just to make sure. But now that everything's hooked up, it's tight, there's some tension on it. I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna put it back in the car, we're gonna see how it sounds. We're gonna have to run these wires before we actually put this in the car and bolt it down because we won't have access to them. All right, so now we're all wired in. We have the power wire run through the dash, and then we have a ground that's grounded to the chassis down there. So we should be all set now. So I'm gonna put that kick panel back in and then we can put the dash pad back on and see how it sounds. Okay, now that it's all hooked up, we're in there. You can see I have that set up in here for right now. I'm actually running a smaller one because it just connects automatically when I get in the car with Bluetooth. So now I can test out the stereo in the car. All right, so that turned out pretty good. I'm actually surprised at how good this single speaker sounds on the dash of the car. I think part of it has to do with the location of it. Since it's directly in the center, it's reflecting up off of the windshield into you. It's not coming directly from a single it's not coming from a single point, but it's actually hitting the windshield and potentially spreading. So it sounds really good. So I'm gonna end up using this for at least the beginning part of spring to see how it works with the exhaust and make sure that we can hear it over the engine. That's it for today. Thanks for tuning in to Smacky's Garage. I'll see you next week.